Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back to the Wilmac Wire. Thank you for tuning in. Before I get into it, whether it's now, during the podcast, later, if you haven't already, go to check out OneROC.com, ONEROC.com. One thing that we talk about in today's episode is awareness of what OneROC is doing. And I'll get into that a little bit in today's intro, but there's a lot happening, a lot of great initiatives that they're a part of, and it'll give you great context into who and what we're discussing today. If you've been listening to this show for a while, you know that we talk a lot about what's being built in our headquarters city of Rochester, New York, in our industry with AI, in 911 centers and contact centers and trading floors. We discuss the innovation, the growth, and the potential within each of those with our different guests. And today's guest is one of the people most responsible for actually making that happen at a strategic level in Rochester, New York. Today, we're talking with Joe Stefko, President and CEO of OneROC, which is Greater Rochester's Regional Economic Alliance. Joe is also a familiar face to us through the Greater Rochester Chamber of Commerce, where he and Steve both serve on the board and the advocacy committee. Here's what you can expect out of today's conversation. Of course, we started things off with Joe's career journey, from managing a $1 billion emergency fiscal control board for the city of Buffalo to leading economic development for the Greater Rochester region. And personally, I am also from Buffalo, like Joe is, and now work in Rochester. So I had to throw a Buffalo versus Rochester icebreaker in our intros. So you'll know when you hear it. We took a look at what OneROC actually does and the role it plays coordinating growth across this region and the different organizations it works with. We took a deep dive into the New York Smart I Corridor Tech Hub, what it is, how it came together, where Joe and OneROC played a part in that, and why it could be a genuine turning point for Rochester, Buffalo, and Syracuse. And last but certainly not least, we had a nice, honest conversation about Rochester's potential, what's going on, what we can do better, and the different initiatives that OneROC is prioritizing, and that you can learn more about on their website, OneROC.com, and encourage, be a part of. This one is jam-packed. Thank you to Joe for joining us on the podcast in person at RockFox Studios, and to his colleague Angela for helping coordinate the logistics. Joe, hopefully I'll see you at Acorn Exchange. If you're from Rochester, if you know, you know. Head over there. All right. Thank you for tuning in. Enjoy today's episode. Welcome to the Wilmac Wire. I'm Emily Miller, joined by my co-host, Steve McDonnell. On this show, we talk with the drivers, the leaders, innovators, and decision makers pushing customer interaction technology and AI forward. And because we're proud to call Western New York home, we also spotlight the drivers in our own community, the people and organizations shaping growth and innovation right here. Let's get into it. Originally from Buffalo, but now coming to us from Rochester, New York, he holds a PhD in public policy from the University of Buffalo. He started his career in government fiscal management at the city of Buffalo, spending nearly 20 years at the Center for Governmental Research, eventually becoming president and CEO. In 2019, he took the helm of what was then ROC 2025 and is now OneROC, Greater Rochester's Regional Economic Alliance. He played a lead role in the New York Smart I Corridor Tech Hub designation and is now the Regional Innovation Officer for the Tech Hub. He was named to the RBJ Power 100 for the past 4 years. Welcome to the Wilmac Wire, Joe Stefko.
Thanks
for joining us.
Great to be here.
Impressive list of things for me to mention there.
Thank you.
All right, Joe, thanks for joining us in person at RockFox Studios today. It's a pleasure to sit down with you face to face. We'll get things started with a really quick icebreaker for our listeners to get to know you a little bit better. We call this one This or That. I'm going to pose 3 questions to you, give you 2 options, and then you'll tell us what you choose and why.
Okay.
So we're starting off with buffalo wings or Rochester garbage plate.
Wow, I'm going to alienate some folks here. Look, I'm born and bred Buffalonian. I have to go with the wings.
I would say the same.
I have to go with the wings.
You got to do it.
I love garbage plates, but
yes.
I'll go with wings on this.
Yeah, Steve, do you have any hard?
Do you like hot wings?
I do like hot wings.
Okay.
Yes.
What's your go-to in Buffalo?
You know, it's tough. There are so many. This is like trying to pick great chowder in Boston, right? Oh boy. I used to like Anchor Bar early on. It had just the proliferation of wings in Buffalo, like Elmo's, 911. There's no shortage of great places.
Very true. Very true. Yeah, I always think it's funny because I'm also from Buffalo. I can never find as good of a buffalo wing in Rochester, and I can never find a garbage plate in Buffalo.
That's exactly right. It's not transferable, and it's amazing because it's only like 75 miles away. Right?
If you have to get wings in Rochester, where would you go?
See, I don't even know. Like, I don't have a go-to wings place. I go home to Buffalo and bring it back.
Samantha, Mark's Pizzeria makes a great wing. They're our go-to here in Rochester.
There's a pizza place in Fairport, TK's.
Okay.
That has good.
Okay, I haven't been to that one. Check that out.
Okay. Oh yeah, I'll write that one down. All right. Next question: downtown Rochester or the Finger Lakes?
Boy, that is a really, really tough one. That's like picking your favorite child. I mean, I love them both. There's some really, really exciting things that are going on in downtown Rochester, and obviously we're partnering on a bunch of those. I am a huge fanatic of our Finger Lakes and our Finger Lakes wineries.
Oh, they're beautiful.
We love spending time on Seneca Lake. So I'm probably going to go like 60-40.
60-40.
Put me on the lake.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Love it. Okay. And last one, attending a OneROC event or brainstorming about the future of rock in the boardroom.
Wow.
These are
great. Like, this should be this and this.
This and this. Choose both.
Look, I love celebrating our work, our progress, lifting up our partners, and being in the room with all those folks that make this work possible. But at the end of the day, I'm somebody that likes nerding out, rolling up my sleeves, and trying to think of creative, innovative ways and collaborative ways to drive the community, drive the region forward. So, so I'm going to say, be in the boardroom, working with our partners, and trying to figure out how we can make this a more competitive and thriving regional economy. Yeah,
strategy piece. I love it. Let me ask, Joe, where are you based in downtown Rochester?
So we are in Clinton Square building.
Yes. Okay.
So we're actually, we're actually, and this actually, this in fact speaks to kind of the OneROC structure. Yeah. As you said at the outset, we serve as the Regional Economic Alliance, and we're deeply invested in the partner organizations that make up that alliance. So Chamber, Greater Rochester Enterprise, Downtown Development Corporation, Visit Rochester, all of our public sector economic development partners. So from day one of what was ROC 2025, almost 7 years ago, we have been embedded in the office of our partner organization. So for our first 5+ years, we were co-located with Greater Rochester Enterprise and the Downtown Development Corporation. And over the last couple of years, we have taken up space with Greater Rochester Chamber in their newly renovated space in Clinton Square. So we're just really, really excited to be co-located with those partners. It really is the kind of the work in action. Yeah, love that. We're in the 5-star bank building, just a few floors below GRE and our DDC. So I always head up there and I'm like, you guys have such a nice office. It's a great space. Yeah. Okay. Wonderful.
The chamber is great space.
The chamber space. Hey, Acorn Exchange.
Acorn Exchange is great. They've gotten many of my dollars in the last couple of years. And also, talk about some of the momentum we're seeing in downtown Rochester. The vision that is now being implemented by Reedman for what will be the revitalized, redeveloped Clinton Square building. It's going to be absolutely spectacular, and that's a perfect proof point for the transition that we're seeing downtown. Something to be really excited about. I don't think Emily knows that the Acorn Exchange is getting some vast improvements. What? Expansion, yes. Live on the pod and figuring out about this? Sounds like we've all collectively bankrolled a chunk of that expansion. So there's Acorn Exchange. We do ladies' lunches every so often at Wilmac, and I think that's always like, can we go to Acorn Exchange? Can we go to Acorn Exchange? And then I bring it home to my fiance for dinner, so I don't have to cook that night. So it's awesome. Love that building. All right, Joe. We'll start off by talking about your career journey a little bit. So I'd like you to tell us a little bit more about your background and kind of how you got to OneROC. So as you mentioned at the outset, immediately before coming to this role, I was with CGR here in Rochester, nonprofit management consultancy that was actually founded by George Eastman over a century ago. And much of the work that I was contributing to there was in the government management space, the public finance, economic analysis space. We would work with state and local governments, work with foundations on issues around community competitiveness and how to maximize their investments. In the local government space, frankly, in my last probably 8 or 10 years there, it was a lot of work on questions of how can we be more efficient and effective as local governments. In many cases, that involved questions of consolidating services, merging service departments, merging governments entirely, village dissolution. So it was really, through this lens of how can we creatively better serve our constituents or taxpayers and the communities that we represent. I started there in 1998. What began as a summer internship pretty quickly turned into a full-time gig, and took over as president and CEO in 2012, and stayed until 2019 when I stepped into this role. There was a 5-year period in the middle there from 03 to 08 when I had an opportunity to go home to Buffalo when the city was on the verge of insolvency. And the state of New York imposed the Fiscal Control Board, legally known as the Buffalo Fiscal Stability Authority. So that was a really amazing experience to be on the front line of some really challenging service delivery questions and financial sustainability questions, and to be able to play a small role in sort of helping build the foundation, that the fiscal stability foundation for a lot of the progress that Buffalo and Western New York has seen is something that I'm really gratified to have had that opportunity.
Very cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's very unique, and obviously Buffalo's came out looking great. The city itself. Do you take a lot of what you learned there and are trying to bring it to here, or is it a little different because it was kind of an emergency situation?
I think even thinking to the work that I did over the years at CGR, every community is different. Different history, different level of conversation, and I think a different willingness to think outside the box and be creative. I think what I learned most in my experience in Buffalo, which has really followed me for the rest of my career, is the importance of working kind of cross-sector and cross-organizationally to try to build consensus. Change is tough enough in the public sector or at the community level. Change can be scary. And I think that's one of the reasons why change is we don't see change at the scale as you might see it in, say, a private organization, right? It just takes longer at the community level. And so those lessons have really followed me throughout my career, and I hope are serving me well in my current role, where we are really working cross-organizationally and multidimensionally.
Yeah. So Steve kind of called it out a little bit, and you called it out too, but you made a pretty significant shift from government fiscal management to regional economic development. What drove that transition?
Well, during my time at CGR, I'd had an opportunity to, again, work on these issues of community competitiveness. Whether we were working with communities across New York State or communities in Massachusetts, we had major engagement with a group of communities, a dozen or so counties in Northeast Ohio, right? And they all kind of fundamentally came down to this question of how can we better compete? How can we better allocate our resources and make capital and programmatic investments so that we can compete with the Sun Belt, the Southwest communities that have been for a generation or more kind of eating our lunch on investment and job growth. And so, like, thematically, that similarity was there. One of the things that also taught me was a lot of the questions that we've asked for a long time, in this part of the country, are not unique to communities like Rochester or Buffalo or Syracuse, right? These are, or Cleveland or Pittsburgh. These are real thematic similarities, and it's an opportunity for us to learn from one another. So I think, again, a lot of those projects, a lot of that work kind of revolved around this space of community competitiveness, and investments that can help us thrive economically in the future. So I think that has served me well since I stepped into this role.
Going back even further, we like to give kind of our audience an idea of, the steps that even got you to that first job. Did you know when you went to UB, you're like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life? Or you ended up getting, I'm assuming, your master's and PhD all from UB?
Yeah, bachelor's, master's, and doctorate all from UB. No, absolutely not. I mean, I stepped on campus at UB as a freshman in the fall of '93 as a pre-law track student, right? Okay. Political science was really a means to an end. I was gonna do my 4-year undergraduate and then go to law school, hopefully at UB, but maybe somewhere else. It was really probably by the end of that freshman year, beginning of my sophomore year, that I really began to gravitate toward the public policy issues that I was learning about in my coursework. Got to know a number of the political science and public policy faculty there, and a series of opportunities to work on some really interesting research projects. And so that was the first step that took me away from the law school track and began to put me on a track where I thought, boy, I could see myself teaching at the collegiate university level, right? So now all of a sudden the doctorate became an intriguing pathway for me. And as I mentioned before, started my wife and I, we met as undergrads at UB, got engaged after we graduated. I stayed at Buffalo for graduate school. A Rochester native, she came to U of R for graduate school. So we spent the first year of our engagement apart. And I said after that first year, I said, let me get an internship in Rochester. I'll come into town for the summer. We can be together. And then I'll go back to UB in the fall for the start of my second year of grad school. And that internship turned into a full-time gig pretty quickly. And the rest is kind of history. That was the beginning of my connection to Rochester, and really what took me from what I was thinking I would do to a much more applied kind of policy role that I've been in for the last couple of decades.
Interesting.
Okay, so what keeps you motivated in a role like this? Like you talked about, you have to build consensus a lot and work with different groups and organizations and stakeholders. Like, what keeps you motivated and tuned into it?
Well, I find the work fascinating. And I find the whole, first of all, we've got incredible people and first-rate leaders in this economic development ecosystem, very motivated leaders. This community, this region should be really proud of the people that are fighting every day to create jobs and investment and recruit and retain talent here in our region. But if I was going to boil it down, what keeps me motivated is just the simple fact that this is home. This is home, right? And I'm a firm believer that whether it's Rochester or Buffalo, or you talk about upstate New York generally, we have I think the perception of these places isn't on par with the assets that we bring to the table. And the work that we all do is an opportunity for us to reclaim and reassert the narrative about what these communities, what these regions can actually achieve, especially if they work together, especially if we work cross-organizationally, and that we can compete with any part of the country and any region in the world. And so it's a little bit of maybe this is just being a native Western New Yorker too, it's a little bit of the chip on the shoulder that, we want to lock arms and fight for this place and build a better future.
Yeah, I love it. So for listeners who aren't familiar, we touched on OneROC and what you guys do a little bit, but how would you describe what OneROC does and the role it plays in the region? And then second follow-up question to that, like, have you been exposed to other organizations like OneROC in other cities?
Sure. So OneROC, as you said before, serves as the Regional Economic Alliance. And when it was created in 2019 as ROC 2025, it really had two core responsibilities. One was to serve as a coordinating vehicle to help within the context of an aligned strategic plan, strategic vision, align the work of all of those economic development partner organizations that are part of the alliance that make up OneROC. Secondly, at least as importantly, was to significantly increase the level at which our business and philanthropic community are investing in that economic development infrastructure, that organizational infrastructure. So the creation of ROC 2025 was predated by a major engagement that Boston Consulting Group had done late 2018, early 2019, in which they benchmarked Greater Rochester's regional economic performance against about 50 peer metros nationally, and then looked with a critical eye at how we were structured and resourced to do the work of job creation, investment cultivation, talent attraction and retention, regional branding and marketing. And coming out of that engagement, we had real alignment among the organizations and the boards that comprise this economic development ecosystem. So ROC 2025, now OneROC, was really created to serve as the steward of that aligned plan.
Right.
And initially, the call to action was generate $20 million in net new resources to invest in not new organizations, but to invest in the organizations that are doing, in GRE's case, business attraction and business expansion. In the Chamber's case, regional talent attraction and retention. Support RDDC's activities downtown, and launch this regional branding and marketing initiative, which is our Greater Rock campaign. Since then, we'll probably get into this in the course of the conversation, our role, in addition to those core responsibilities, we've stepped into some strategic leadership roles for key regional economic opportunities, one of which is the Semiconductor Regional Tech Hub, the Smart Eye Corridor Tech Hub. One is the Regional Revitalization Partnership, which we serve as the intermediary and implementation lead on. And another is a relatively new partnership with the Ralph C. Wilson Jr. Foundation that's focused on deepening the capacity of the entrepreneurship ecosystem.
Yeah. So since you mentioned that now, I know we talked about including it in there. Let's dig into that.
Sure.
I know you mentioned kind of before we started, it involves startups. Can you speak to that a little bit more?
Yeah. So we are extremely fortunate to have as the lead partner on this, the Ralph C. Wilson Jr. Foundation. They have over the last 2 to 3 years been helping to facilitate the creation of a grassroots informed and ecosystem informed assessment of our entrepreneurship community. Now, their geographic focus is bigger than just Rochester, right? So their grant making footprint is Rochester, Buffalo, and sort of that western southern tier south of Buffalo. And so what they launched a couple of years ago were a series of what they called Springboard Rapid Prize Awards. They wanted to get dollars out to entrepreneur support organizations that were interested in doing some innovative pilot things, right, to advance the ecosystem. Phase 2 of their vision is what OneROC is serving as the intermediary, the implementation lead on, and that is something called the Ecosystem Accelerator. So essentially, that model that I shared with you a couple of minutes ago about the original ROC 2025 helping to better coordinate and more deeply resource economic development activities here in Rochester. If you slap that model onto the entrepreneurship ecosystem across this 3-market community. So they're investing to deepen the capacity of the ecosystem. They want to better support, they want entrepreneur support organizations to be better equipped to support entrepreneurs, right? So how can we support those that are supporting entrepreneurs? And to better connect that broader 3-community ecosystem. Fast forwarding a year from now, the third and final phase of that vision, which would be sustained, is to really begin to directly address the capital gap, the VC gap, that too often hamstrings startups here in our region. And so the vision is a three-phase fund of funds, which at full build-out would be north of $120 million, again, to invest capital in the most promising startups and to bring VCs from across the country in to become part of that, right? It's all about how can we put more gasoline in the tank of our entrepreneurial support, our entrepreneurial ecosystem here in upstate New York.
Yeah, this is great. I think I've heard of it through the grapevine a bit. We've talked to the incubator in Rochester.
Next Court.
We've talked to them a couple times. And same sort of thing. We're missing the VCs. We're missing the capital, obviously. When you say support the people who are supporting the entrepreneur support system, who are people like that? Not the actual entrepreneurs, but
so those are organizations like NextCore.
Okay.
Those are organizations like RIT's Q, which is downtown. Again, this is the infrastructure that supports entrepreneurs, right? And I think this is an innovative way of thinking about it. That you can support entrepreneurs by directly funding an entrepreneur. You can also, and I would argue in a more sustained way, support entrepreneurs long term by investing in the vehicles, the infrastructure that supports them, right? Because if I invest in that ESO, well, not only can it support you as an entrepreneur, but it can support all three of us as entrepreneurs, right? And it really has more staying power. And that's how you strengthen an ecosystem. So I think Wilson, the process that Wilson facilitated with all of those ecosystem partners over the last few years to inform this deserves all of the credit for this. And we just have an opportunity at OneROC to play a part in helping bring it to life.
So I love how you're using the word ecosystem, because I think kind of the startup community, innovation needs an ecosystem to survive. If you look at the big places across the United States, it's a huge ecosystem. One thing that I feel like Rochester, and now you're talking Buffalo with Ralph Wilson, it's combined, but both of them have, Rochester definitely, is the university systems. And then we do, even for being, smaller cities, have flagship companies and flagship hospitals. I would look at them as part of the ecosystem. If you're going to build a startup, getting that first, second, third customer is the hardest thing to do. And where this world is going now with AI and vertical AI specializing in certain industries, if you could get them on board to be like, listen, if we like an idea, we'll partner with them, invest in them, maybe not invest, but be their first customer, be a use case. Is that something that you guys think about, or is that down the road?
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And I love your sort of taking this broad definition to ecosystem, right? Without a doubt. Our large employers, our colleges and universities in this region are major pillars of that ecosystem, whether it's the ecosystem that OneROC is helping to deepen the capacity in, whether it's the entrepreneurial ecosystem. Steve, what you mentioned reminds me of some of the work that we are involved in with through the Smart Eye Corridor Tech Hub activities, where it is, you think about the massive investment that Micron is in the process of making in Onondaga County, which creates a major demand driver for all of us across upstate New York and New York State broadly. But we've got major, not just other fabs in New York State, we've got major tier one suppliers there, right? All of whom are buying significant amounts of things, right? So what we're trying to do through our supply chain project as part of the Smart Eye Corridor Tech Hub is make those marriages. So if tier one company X, right, has to buy a certain supply, and we've got available supply here in region, that's an opportunity for us to anchor that spend right here in the corridor and really get those dollars circulating. So whether it's in the entrepreneurship space, whether it's in the the tech hub or the broader economic development ecosystem, where we can create those marriages and have buyers and suppliers existing in our midst, that's how we get real impact.
How do you figure out where to put the time in when you?
There's so many opportunities.
There's so many different balls in the air. They're all great. They all need attention, but it's how do you figure what priority?
It's an interesting question. It's one of the reasons why at OneROC we are just in the first couple of months of revisiting and likely refreshing our own strategic and capacity building plan, right? So the original plan, as I mentioned, was the product of the work that BCG did back in 2018 and 2019. But as detailed as that original portfolio of activities was in capacity building and generating new investment, it never contemplated things like a Smart Eye Corridor Tech Hub focused on semiconductors. It never contemplated an entrepreneurial accelerator or an $80 million regional revitalization partnership. So what we've tried to do is be smart and allow our work to evolve as a capacity builder, as an ecosystem builder and connecting entity. But I think as with any organization, we've got to step back every few years and just reassess where we are and reassess what our own capacity needs are. I will say that when ROC 2025, OneROC were originally created, there was a lot of intentionality that this not be another organization. Right. So one of the things BCG said in their original analysis was, you have organizations in the ecosystem, right? We can layer on better coordination. We can certainly drive more resources to those organizations. And I remember when my former board chair, Rob Sands, had first approached me and said, hey, we'd like to talk to you about stepping into this role. And I said, respectfully, Rob, if this is about creating another organization, like I'm happy doing what I'm doing, right?
Yeah.
But if there's an interest in doing something innovative, just really keeping the alliance infrastructure as lean as possible, so that a company or a foundation invests in us, invests in the capacity building plan.
Yeah.
We're not taking those dollars and paying our own finance office, paying for our own real estate, right? We're driving those dollars overwhelmingly to grow the capacity of the ecosystem and its competitiveness. Like if that's what we're talking about, then I'm interested. And that is exactly where the leadership team around that table post BCG study was, and it's the primary reason why I was excited to step into this role.
Right.
But to your point, Steve, like it's tough to balance these because they're all amazing opportunities, in some cases generational opportunities for our community, and we want to make sure that we're best positioned to capitalize.
Yeah, I definitely see that through line a little bit more, because when you were talking about CGR, you talked about being as effective and efficient as possible, and it sounds like you're taking that that same mindset into what you guys do at OneROC. So very cool. So in 6 years at OneROC, you've secured nearly $30 million in capacity building investments and seen Rochester improve its peer rankings across job growth, income, and GDP. Do you think there are specific examples of what has driven that process, driven that progress, or has it been compounding? Can you speak more to that?
Yeah, this is it's a tough question to answer, because this is not in all of this kind of work. This isn't a scientific experiment. This isn't a lab experiment, right?
Yeah.
So I think about when we started this work in 2019, that peer group that we benchmark against every month has 53 MSAs, including Rochester, 53 total. We were 43rd in year-over-year job growth out of 53, right? As of December, we were 32nd.
Okay.
Right. So we're seeing that kind of directional improvement in pretty much all the metrics that we track. Is that exclusively because of OneROC's role? No, absolutely not. Right. Is it just because we've driven more resources into this ecosystem? No, absolutely. There's a lot of macro factors that are driving, economic, the broader economy regionally and nationally and globally. Right. What we're trying to stay focused on is controlling what we can control. Right. And for our work, that is making sure that the alliance partner organizations have the resources they need to service those, GRE's case, service those companies that are considering moving into and investing in our region. Yeah. The Chamber's case, making sure that talent that's here, the 75,000 enrolled college students in our region, that they've got employer connectivity, that they've experienced the community, the region off campus, so that when they walk across stage and grab that diploma, we've made this place stickier than it would have been otherwise, right? That we're recruiting talent in from outside of the region, that we're piloting some things and trying to drive downtown activation, right, in the core of the region. And then again, with the regional branding and marketing initiative, the Greater Rock campaign, unapologetically telling that story here in region and with paid media nationally. Right. So it's not exclusively our work, but I think I'm really proud that the investments that we and the partner organizations have made over the last 7 years have coincided with these improvements in peer rank that we've seen almost across the board.
A specific example, let's take the Chamber and how they work with the college students, because you're right, there's 75,000 hits you hard. How many students are in Rochester, and we lose a decent amount of them. Now a decent amount come back too. But so how would you guys play a role with Bob and his team in helping Rochester look great to college kids?
So there's a program that we have funded for about 5 years, 5.5 years, called Campus Rock. It is modeled on Campus Philly, which Metro Philadelphia. That one was founded probably 14 or 15 years ago, and bringing resources and real intentionality to engaging those students, building that kind of college student community within the broader community, hosting events that get those students off campus, right, to experience the community that goes beyond just the boundaries of their campus or their classroom. The employer connectivity is a big part of that as well. We want to make sure that students are aware of the wide range of career options here in their fields that given our cost advantages in this region, right, are a real no-brainer to start your career, right? And I think as is the case, we were talking about kind of regional reputations a little earlier. I think one of the things that we need to continue taking head on is the perception that, well, there aren't opportunities. There are opportunities here, right? And in the case of those 70,000+ enrolled college students in our region, they have self-selected into our community for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, whatever it is. Whether they were a Greater Rochester high schooler that decided to stay here, or they're coming in from Buffalo or Boise or Beijing to spend time here, right? It's an opportunity for us to make sure that they don't simply walk across stage after 4 years or 2 years or 5 years and grab that diploma and go to the airport. And so I think the Campus Rock initiative has really helped to better coordinate that work with all of our college and university partners and really give our graduating college students something to think about, right? And also to your point, Steve, there's not a region in the country that keeps 100% of their enrolled college students, right? But when you get 2, 3, 4, 5 years out from that degree and you're looking to take the next step in your career or your family, we want to make sure that those graduates who have chosen to leave here have left here knowing, well, I can get a house, at a relatively low price point, or the commuting is great, or boy, I really love the seasons, or boy, there's a great art and culture and food scene, right? So just that intentionality makes this place, I think, a stronger draw.
Yeah, love it. All right, we love Campus Rock. We've gone to a couple of their talent fests over the past few years.
That's
so
great.
I always hear the mechanical bull. That's the big thing that they always want to bring back. But yeah, all right. So we'll move now more into the New York Smart Eye Corridor. So OneROC played a lead role in securing that, which is a federal tech hub designation, and it brought in $50 million in total investment to the Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse region. So can you walk us through what that designation means and how it came together and how OneROC played a role?
Certainly. So the Regional Tech Hub program is a component of the Federal Chips and Science Act, which was passed in 2022. That legislation, of course, was focused on providing dollars to onshore semiconductor chips, as well as to invest in communities that, in the federal government's from the federal government's perspective, had the assets and the potential to grow over the next decade into world leaders in one of a series of key technology focus areas, one of which was semiconductors. So just before the Chips and Science Act was passed, so this probably would have been in late 21, very early 22, we began to pull Buffalo and Rochester leadership together. Economic development, higher ed, labor, public sector, industry partners, to talk about what a joint proposal could look like and begin to assess our complementary assets, right? Let's figure out a way to compete together rather than against one another, which is, I think, another paradigm shift that we're seeing over the last few years, which is really, really exciting in this kind of work. We were one of 387 applicants to the Regional Tech Hub Phase 1 process. 387 communities, regions across the country that put in a bid. Of those 387, 31 were designated as tech hubs. Those 31 then were invited to apply for implementation funding. So we were one of the 12 to receive that first in the nation implementation funding, the only one in the full value chain semiconductor space. What does that mean? Well, our proposal, our programs are really based on accelerating the workforce, the development of the workforce, both in that microelectronics technician space, but also in the trades, right? Think about what the capital construction that's going to be required at Micron, the capital construction that is concluding in Genesee County for Edwards Vacuum, right? So we've got to build these facilities, and we've got to make sure that we have a trades worker pipeline and then a technician pipeline to fill those facilities. So workforce is one. Commercialization is second. Commercialization is really focused on making sure that we're doing everything we can to ensure that innovations in the semiconductor and microelectronics space are happening here in the corridor. And that really is anchored around our R1 and R2 research universities, where we've got, from UB to U of R, RIT, Syracuse University, Cornell, we've got an embarrassment of riches in this space, and we've got incredible world-leading expertise that can advance the microelectronics industry. Right. So we're connecting companies to that. And then the third component project is focused on supply chain. And Steve, this kind of gets back to what we were talking about before, that we are doing everything we can to connect suppliers that are in this region that can plug into that semiconductor supply chain to make those marriages with those large institutional buyers. This is really about anchoring as much of that spend in our region as possible. Well, that doesn't mean that we're going to be able to compete for every part of that semiconductor supply chain. There are specific chemicals, gases, and pieces of equipment, $500-600 million pieces of equipment that Micron and others will only purchase from a single company in the Netherlands, right? So we're not going to compete there, but where we can compete, we want to make sure that companies here that can provide that service, provide those supplies, are aware of it, and B, that we're actually making the formal connection between the buyers and the suppliers. So each of those three projects, workforce commercialization and supply chain, are about 18 months into their initial activation here. And we're probably at about 340, 350 companies already engaged across those three projects.
Okay. So
go ahead.
No.
I was going to ask how the universities, kind of the commercialization of it, what does that entail? Like Micron, Intel, all like those types of companies are starting to work with our local universities?
Well, you're already saying that. Micron's a perfect example, right? So they're already working with universities across the corridor, and not just Syracuse University, but involvement with our universities here in Rochester and in Buffalo, as well as the nanofab space at Cornell. The commercialization work, though, is fundamentally, it's more focused on those smaller or mid-sized companies that are looking to accelerate their go-to-market strategy, right? So we've got, for example, in the commercialization project, we've got funding to essentially buy those companies that are looking to take their innovation to the next level, to essentially buy them time on university prototyping equipment, access to those specialized facilities. So it's a way for us to unlock the door to this network of innovation assets that we have across the corridor, and one of the in the interest of regional, kind of super regional collaboration here, one of the really cool things that we've seen over the last couple of years is sort of a systems approach to thinking about those assets, those complementary assets across our university network. So, for example, if you are an innovating company and you're in Buffalo, and you approach we have an innovation concierge position at each of these universities. You approach your innovation concierge at UB, and you say, I need access to a clean room that has this equipment. I'm going to need 100 hours on it so that we can be ready for our go-to-market final steps. UB is positioned to say, we don't have that, but our IT does. Right. So again, kind of building this integrated system where there's A, no wrong door, and B, these seamless handoffs, so that from the end user perspective, from the company or customer perspective, when they tap into the tech hub, they're tapping into this integrated array of assets across market.
Right.
That's great. How do you? So Micron's obviously the huge one. Everyone's talking about it. Do you see those growth stage startup, whatever you want to call them, starting to pop up and take advantage of these universities? And I would assume either be trying to work with Micron eventually. Do you see that stuff starting to happen?
We do. And in fact, I think in some cases, that activity predated the tech hub. It was one of the reasons why we were well positioned and had a really compelling case to make to the feds, that we weren't starting de novo on this work, but you just look at the work that Nextcore and Luminate do, attracting world-leading startups in that optics and photonics space, which is essential. It's fundamental to advances in microelectronics and semiconductors, right? We just, through the commercialization project, announced about a month ago the first 6 innovation vouchers to those small and mid-sized companies that are now going to tap into those university resources. We have 15 or 17 that are immediately behind them in the pipeline, so you're going to start to see more of these pop. But in thinking about not just the sort of blocking and tackling work of this, but telling the story, like we've got to lift those companies up and really shine a light on them, because they become part of the brand. They become part of telling a global audience, but maybe also telling some of the naysayers in our midst, like this is possible and it's happening here.
Yeah. Wonderful. And I know the corridor has some pretty ambitious, like 10-year goals. And to name a few, 9,000 plus new jobs, $18 billion in additional GDP growth, and producing 25% of American-made chips by 2034. You've hit on it a lot with the collaboration aspect between Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse. Like, where do you see Rochester fitting specifically into that sort of vision, those goals?
Well, Rochester is extraordinarily relevant here. Both for our geography, being what I call the buckle on the belt here between Buffalo and Syracuse. Also because of our pedigree in optics, photonics, imaging, laser technology. The University of Rochester has a major National Science Foundation bid, their stellar laser bid that is pending right now, that would layer on top of this. We have really unmatched expertise in that space, and we've got a burgeoning optics sector here that I think is off of, it's off of the average Greater Rochesterian's radar screen. I think they'd be really
100%.
impressed to know that industry base that we have here. So I think that the table is really set for us to be able to achieve those goals. I think one of the other really interesting things about even beyond those immediate goals for the Tech Hub work, one of the really interesting and exciting things that I'm seeing is this consortium that we've developed across Rochester, Buffalo, and Syracuse is now starting to produce fruit in other areas, right? So we're talking about ways that we can work together and secure national funding, national philanthropy to invest in our respective small business ecosystems, right? So, the partnership itself is really powerful beyond just what we're seeing in the collaboration around semiconductor and microelectronics. And I do want to just lift up that statistic that you mentioned, Emily, for your listeners. Based on planned investments alone, 10 years from now, 1 in 4 domestically produced semiconductor chips will be manufactured within 350 miles of where we're all sitting. So this is like Detroit and Pontiac at the beginning of the auto industry. Like the table is set for us, the opportunity for us to really create generational, transformational economic opportunity in our communities is in front of us. And really the Tech Hub work is all about making sure that we fully capitalize on that opportunity.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
I think you're right. I think the general public doesn't realize that or know that.
Yeah. All right, Joe, before we start to wrap up, you and Steve both serve on the Greater Rochester Chamber's Advocacy Committee.
Right.
Where in our economy do you see those conversations leaning towards? I know you guys have a meeting tomorrow. We just talked with Vince a little bit about it.
I didn't know you were popping a question on this.
But where does AI investment fit into that? Loaded question.
I don't know. You want to take this one, Steve?
I think we're pretty early in the conversation with the committee on any of this.
We are, but I think that I don't know about AI specifically. I would just say more broadly, though, I'm excited about using that table to inform a regional economic strategy. So we have, you could say, well, OneROC has strategies. Our strategy to this point has been really focused on, again, coordination, capacity building, and leading on some regional strategic economic opportunities. But what is that North Star for us as a region? If we are, I think we've certainly seen success in some other regions of the country in aligning that business, philanthropic, public sector voice into a unified chorus behind 1 or 2 or 3 specific priorities in a way that informs what we're all doing across multiple organizations. And I think, not unlike what we did with the Tech Hub, not unlike what we've been able to do with the Regional Revitalization Partnership, this is about how we align what each of us is doing in our own organizations to strengthen the broader regional competitiveness. And I think that table is going to be critical in helping get to that plan.
Yeah, it's exciting. Again, tomorrow's only the second day, so more to come on that. But to your point with AI, the Micron chip, I mean, that's how do you think AI is being powered? Why do you think it's so important? So it's just a layer in the AI tech stack. People don't think of it like that, but the reality is it's the core base layer of an AI tech stack, which is exciting that is here in Western or Central New York.
Right. Wonderful. All right, Joe, as I start to wrap us up, are there any initiatives or programs at OneROC that we didn't talk about? I'm sure there's a long list, but that you'd like to share about with our listeners?
So the only other one that I would lift up, and I alluded to this a little while ago, is the RRP, the Regional Revitalization Partnership. So this is another partnership that involves Ralph C. Wilson Jr. Foundation, but it is anchored by New York State, and it has a variety of funders here in Rochester, philanthropic funders, ESL, CONAR, Farish Foundation, M&T, NBT, Five Star, and includes the city and county. It is a co-investment strategy to really create more powerful capital stacks by having funders align their investments in three buckets: as workforce, commercial corridor revitalization, and placemaking. And here in Rochester, it's placemaking with an emphasis on the Genesee River. But one significant project that is in its early stages but is being funded by RRP is the newly launched West Main Gateway corridor revitalization project that will start in Bull's Head, near where ESL's investment is, and move into downtown from there. And it is providing dollars for small businesses, for property owners there, and really trying to create space and resources to revitalize that historically important corridor, strategic corridor, and gateway into downtown. So that's the type of project that RRP is helping to support. Another one is Harper's Corner, right at Main and Clinton. For how long was that a blighted property, right? And RRP was able to provide sort of that last mile funding to make that project a reality. So we're really excited to see these RRP funded projects come to life.
Wonderful. Thanks for sharing. Joe, Steve, any last questions?
No, thanks, Joe. Appreciate it. This was insightful. I think a lot of information, a lot of stuff that you guys are doing needs to get out into the public more. I know you guys are kind of behind the scenes with GRE and the chamber, but you guys are doing a great job, and getting it out is great.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So for our listeners, if you'd like to connect with Joe or OneROC, you can find Joseph on LinkedIn under Joseph Stefko. The website is oneroc.com, and you can also find OneROC on LinkedIn, Facebook, X, and Instagram. And last but certainly not least, Joe is also a podcaster and has a podcast you can listen to called Accelerate Greater through OneROC. So, Joe, thanks for joining us on the Wilmac Wire today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Wilmac Wire. If you liked today's conversation, make sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, or watch full episodes on our YouTube channel. You can also learn more about Wilmac Technologies and our work in customer interaction technology at wilmactech.com. We'll be back soon with more conversations with the drivers, those shaping our industry and those building right here in Western New York. See you next time.